Maybe you're feeling burnt out. Maybe you're feeling it creep in. Maybe you see a lack of listeners and you're feeling discouraged. Or maybe this was part of your business marketing plan and you haven't seen an ROI. And I want you to walk away from this episode with 2 tangible things that can help you gain consistent traction, confidently create content, and peacefully move forward with purpose. If you are a female Christian entrepreneur or life coach, you need a podcast. And if you have a podcast, you need a podcast coach. Finding a supportive and empowering community is key to podcaster success. Through my holistic approach as a trained life coach and my experience in the podcast industry since 2016, I want to encourage you weekly through answering your podcasting questions. I'm cheering for you and your voice matters. Hey, my podcasting friend. I am your podcast coach, Kristin Chadwick. You're listening to another episode of Holistic Podcasting. Today, I want to talk to you about podcasting burnout and 2 ways to reignite your podcast. But first, I want to tell you a little story. So this story is about a podcast client of mine. And one day we were sitting on a Zoom call and she starts telling me about a place of desperation. She was ready to throw in the towel after a year of releasing consistent content onto her podcast. And podcasting had started to feel frivolous. Her podcasting was chaotic and desperate. She felt like she was throwing spaghetti at the wall and nothing was sticking. Her podcast numbers were low and not showing any growth. And with little to no feedback from her audience, she was really discouraged and lost on how to proceed. And I really could see the burnout creeping in. And she had reached out to me to help her turn around her podcast or to throw in the towel. And like so many entrepreneurs, podcasters can come to a desperate place after jumping feet first into new territory, whether that's a new business, a new podcast. And I'm all about that entrepreneurial spirit and just going for it. However, there comes a time when we need to pause and reflect and be intentional on how to move forward. And we talked about this last week on the episode about pausing, reflecting, so that in our podcast plant, if you know what I'm talking about here, our little podcast plant, we have to make sure that we're cutting back the areas that we know are not growing. And we need to be nurturing areas that need to have a little bit more nurturing. So like my podcasting client, we all need a listening ear, someone else to hear what's going on and to ask those hard questions during these moments. And today I want to do that for you. And I want to come alongside you and help you navigate how to reignite your podcast, because I'm not going to tell you to throw in the towel. I want you to keep going. Okay. I talk a lot in this podcast about how to start a podcast. There's plenty of episodes talking about how to start a podcast. You guys, there's a boot camp starting April 20th. I would love for you to start that. It's Podcast Bootcamp from idea to launch. It's for anybody who is wanting to start a podcast and get one launched before summer 2023. That is for you. Today, I want to talk specifically to current podcasters. Like my client, maybe you're feeling burnt out. Maybe you're feeling it creep in. Maybe you see a lack of listeners and you're feeling discouraged. Or maybe this was part of your business marketing plan and you haven't seen an ROI. And I want you to walk away from this episode with 2 tangible things that can help you gain consistent traction, confidently create content, and peacefully move forward with purpose. So today's episode is for you, my current podcasters. And I want you to put a little bee in your bonnet to know that I'm also offering, as I've talked about on the podcast the last couple of weeks, a podcast growth and monetization course that's starting the end of April. That link is down below. I really think that today's episode is going to encourage you and bring value. And I want to come alongside of you personally and help you through group coaching, a 6-week group coaching course where we will hit on more growth and monetization for your specific podcast. Okay, so coming back to this episode. First of all, current podcaster, you are a podcaster. You are doing the hard thing. You have said yes to a call within you to use your voice. You are making ripples of impact. Whether you have a coaching business, an entrepreneur business, a network marketing, you're an author, you're a mother, and you have said yes to pressing record and sharing your content. I want to say, well done. The power of your voice is more influential than you could ever imagine. And the amount of people that have heard your podcast that may not have reached out is more than what you see. And I want to say that not everyone is as brave as you are to put content out into the world in the efforts to serve your potential listener and your current clients on this whole different level. So well done. I want you to celebrate that. One way you can grow your podcast is by getting super clear on your message. This is fundamental. Why did you start podcasting in the first place? Why are you continuing to do podcasting? And this might be a little difficult to uncover, but I want you to stick with this. And again, I want you to join this group so that I can one-on-one coach you. But listen, what are you known for in your industry? What are you known for in your circles, in your business circles, in your personal circles? What's the message you want to amplify through the power of podcasting? You want to be known for helping a particular person with a specific problem. We talked about this last week. What are the problems that you are solving for your listener? For instance, we're going to try this simple exercise. I'm going to fill in the blanks of this sentence. I am a blank and I help blank so that blank. This is a framework so that you can clarify what your message is and why you're doing this. So an example of this would be, I am a mindset life coach and I help women who feel stuck in a fixed mindset so that they can break free from thought patterns holding them back. When you're clear on your message, you can build off of this foundation. And taking this example from above, if you're a mindset coach, you can now get clear on what type of topics you want to move forward with and what would be most beneficial to your ideal client. You stay in your lane, so to speak. And listeners to your podcast come to you for a specific reason. They want to hear a strategy on how to help them with a problem. And when you're unclear on that, it can cause the listener to be unsure of why they are listening, and in turn, they don't invest their time to come back for more, or they don't engage in your programs. So your main job is to bring this message and to create clear value to your listener on every episode. Every episode, you can ask yourself, am I in the alignment with my message? Will this speak to my audience? This should reflect not only in your podcast name, but in each and every episode title. For instance, in the example of the mindset coach, instead of like a cutesy inside joke title of a podcast show, be more specific, like growth mindset when you feel like you're stuck in a fixed mindset. That would be a great episode title. Being clear will allow your audience to feel confident in what they're choosing to listen to, and will allow for growth to occur because of clear search engine optimization, whether that's in their brain or inside their podcast app or through SEO. The second way to reignite your podcast is for you to develop a content strategy. I talked about this a little bit last week too, and I cannot emphasize this enough. Winging it and just recording episodes randomly will most definitely create burnout and inconsistent growth. Creating a content plan is going to help you stay on track within your genre and message and allow for your listeners to really understand clearly your vision and serve them well. If you were to sit in front of me, if you were to join this growth course, we would look through your business plan for the next 6 to 12 months or your podcast plan, and I would ask you these questions. I would be very specific. I would say, what products are you launching? What are you wanting to launch? What courses will you be wanting to promote? What's your vision for your podcast, for your business in this next year? All of that is super important in planning your content because, as the saying goes, work smarter, not harder. And in my opinion, your podcast is the center of your business. It is the top of the pyramid as I've worked with my podcast growth clients. It's the starting point of all other content. And the core of your business is your message. And then you build out content based on launches or courses which are scheduled in the upcoming year. And I'm going to dive into this a little bit more in an upcoming episode on how to align your online courses with your podcast. So stay tuned for that. So if you plan on releasing weekly episodes for the next year, okay, so you're going to need 52 topics. This may feel overwhelming, but I don't want you to get lost in this of oh my gosh, there's so much to do. You have 12 months to put out content, which means you can break down your podcast to have 12 topics. Go back to our growth strategy, right? We're going to get clear on our message. So what are those 4 main topics you are known for in your line of business and podcasting? Once you have those 4 topics, design each month to hit your area of expertise. Remember to always think about your listeners' experience. That's always going to be first. What are they going to walk away with? What are they going to walk away with through the rest of spring? What about summertime? And once you have those 4 topics in mind, I want you to interweave specific seasons your ideal listener is going to be walking through. Is your ideal listener a mom who's about to enter into summer? Because I want you to think about that. How are they approaching summer? Are they going to take it back a little bit? Are they going to press pause on listening to podcast episodes? Are they actually going to dive more into it because now they have free time because they're off of work and they have a month off? It's those kind of things that we need to plan for. And for the grand finale of how to do this strategy, this podcast content strategy, is that you want to make sure that you are pointing your listeners to your email, your courses, your products, and your big launches. If you followed me this far, you will be well on your way to creating strategic content, because I love talking about aligning all of what we do. This is why we're called holistic podcasting. That's why I have another podcast called Holistic Hearts, because when we are in alignment, things flow so much easier and there's a peace in there. We don't have so much chaos like my client had, right? We begin to get clear on what we need to do. Okay. If you are feeling like this podcast client of mine, where if you were to sit in front of me on a Zoom call and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not sure what's working and you're not sure where to go from here, I want you to reach out. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about how you can not only continue to podcast, but see success like you've always dreamed of. My podcast client from the above story, she ended up doubling her listenership. And she has all of 2023 mapped out and has gained so much more traction in connecting and turning listeners into paying customers in the 2 months that we worked together of receiving coaching from me. That's incredible. So don't give up on your podcast. Sometimes you just need somebody to come alongside you and really take a look at what are those areas that are growing? What are those areas that we need to cut back on? What's our strategy plan? How do we align all of this together so that it doesn't feel like you're throwing spaghetti to the wall? You have put so much into your podcast. Don't give up. Even if you feel burned out, there are tools to help you. Like I talked about today, and I talked about the last couple of weeks and all throughout the podcast. I want you to reignite your podcast through the power of podcast coaching. And I want you to consider joining my upcoming podcast growth and monetization course starting April 25th. And I promise you're going to walk away with reignited passion, purpose, and clarity on how to grow and monetize your specific podcast. In this coaching course, I want to just give you a little detail. It will be not one-on-one, but group coaching weekly via Zoom, and you'll have Voxer access to me as you do weekly accountability action steps to help intentionally create space for you to focus on your podcasts before summer hits. Okay, so the invitation is open, my friend. This is up to you. I would love to come and kind of untangle all of that, get clear, and help you grow and monetize your podcast. Snag your spot today. All right, you guys, I'll talk to you soon. Be on the listen for next week's episode. We're going to be talking about aligning your course with your podcast. So, see you then. Hey, thanks for listening today. I hope that you feel encouraged and inspired to launch and grow your podcast. And speaking of that, I want to personally invite you. If you are thinking about starting a podcast or you're thinking about growing your current podcast, I have an amazing opportunity coming up in the middle of April, inviting you into our Podcast Bootcamp. The first one is for new podcasters who are looking to launch and create their brand new podcast. And the second is going to be for current podcasters who want to grow and monetize their podcast. Come check it out at www.kristinfieldschadwick.com, or you can find me on Instagram and send me a message and that you want to know more.